The smell hit me first, a toxic cocktail of bleach, rotten eggs, and something sickeningly sweet that made my stomach turn. I stood frozen in the doorway of what used to be my apartment, my phone trembling in my hand as I recorded everything. The walls, once pristine white, were now covered in spray-painted obscenities. Ungrateful bitch, stretched across the living room in dripping red letters. You deserve nothing, decorated what was left of my kitchen cabinets, their doors ripped off and thrown across the floor. My mother stood in the center of the destruction, her designer heels crunching on broken glass from the windows they'd smashed. She was laughing, actually laughing, as my sister Sophia poured motor oil across the hardwood floors I'd spent 3 years saving up to install. This is what happens when you try to leave your family, Mom said, turning to face me with that cold smile I knew so well. You thought you could just walk away? Start over without us? After everything we've done for you? My father emerged from the bedroom, dragging my mattress behind him, the one I'd bought myself after sleeping on the floor for 6 months, because they said I didn't deserve a real bed. He'd taken a knife to it, and white batting spilled out like snow. 24 years, he said, his voice dripping with contempt. 24 years we fed you, clothed you, kept a roof over your head. And this is how you repay us? By getting some fancy job and thinking you're too good for us? I kept recording, making sure to capture Sophia as she took a hammer to my television, the one I'd won in a company raffle last Christmas. The same raffle where I'd also won the attention of someone who would change my life, though my family didn't know that part yet. Nothing to say? Mom taunted, stepping closer. No begging? No apologies? You always were pathetically weak, Emma. At least when you cried, you showed some emotion. Now you just stand there like the worthless statue you've always been. I looked at the lease transfer documents in my other hand, the ones I'd filed with the building management 3 days ago. The ones that officially made this apartment, and all the damage they were doing to it, the legal responsibility of Marcus Chen, my mother's business partner's son. The same Marcus Chen who'd tried to sexually assault me at a family dinner 6 months ago while my parents told me I should be grateful for the attention, and my sister filmed it for blackmail material she never got to use. The same Marcus Chen who'd mysteriously had his name appear on a lease transfer he never signed, thanks to the forensic document specialist my real ally had hired. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand why I was standing there, calmly recording my family destroying an apartment that would ruin the man they'd tried to force me to marry, you need to know about Alexandra Winters. You need to know about the earthquake that wasn't an earthquake, the internship that wasn't really an internship, and the billionaire who'd been looking for her disappeared granddaughter for 15 years. You need to know why I'd spent the last 2 months playing the perfect victim while secretly orchestrating the complete destruction of everyone who'd made my life hell. And it all started 8 months ago when I died. Not metaphorically. I actually literally died for 3 minutes and 47 seconds in a hospital bed after my mother poisoned my coffee before my CPA exam. The doctors called it a miracle when I came back. I called it a second chance. The poisoning wasn't supposed to kill me. Mom was too smart for that. Just make me sick enough to miss the exam, to fail yet again, to prove that I was the worthless failure she'd always said I was. She'd done it before. Food poisoning before my SATs, a gas leak that made me miss my scholarship interview, mysterious illnesses that always struck when opportunity knocked. This time, she miscalculated. Or maybe it was Sophia who miscalculated when she decided to add her own special ingredient to Mom's cocktail, a double dose of the prescription medication she knew I was allergic to. I flatlined in the emergency room. The doctor said I was lucky a nurse was walking by when I crashed. Lucky they had the exact antihistamine needed. Lucky my heart started again at all. But during those 3 minutes and 47 seconds of death, something strange happened. I didn't see a white light or meet deceased relatives. Instead, I found myself in an office, sleek, modern, all glass and chrome with a view of Seattle that seemed to stretch into infinity. A woman sat behind the desk. 60s, silver hair pulled into an elegant chignon, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my parents' house. She looked familiar in a way that made my chest ache. "Emma," she said, and her voice was warm honey and expensive whiskey. "Finally. Am I dead? Temporarily." She stood, walked around the desk. Up close, I could see my eyes in her face, my stubborn chin, my hands. I've been looking for you for 15 years. Your mother, your real mother, was my daughter. My real mother died when I was 9. Car accident. Your real mother died when you were 9, she agreed. But it wasn't a car accident. And the people who raised you after that? They're not your biological family, Emma. They're the people who killed her and took you. The room started spinning, or maybe I was spinning. That's impossible. Your name is Emma Winters. Your mother was my daughter, Catherine. She married young, against my wishes, to a man named David Marsh. When she finally tried to leave him, when she finally reached out to me for help, he killed her, made it look like an accident. And then he remarried quickly to your current mother, Patricia. And they raised you as their own, collecting the trust fund payments meant for your care while making sure you never knew the truth. Trust fund. $50,000 a month until you turned 25. Then you were supposed to inherit everything, the company, the investments, all of it, worth about $3.7 billion at current market value. I laughed. It was hysteria probably, but I laughed. I sleep on a mattress on the floor. They make me pay rent to live in the basement. I work 3 jobs to afford community college classes. I know. Her voice turned to steel. I've known for 3 months. Private investigators finally tracked you down, but I needed proof before I could act. Legal proof. The kind that would stand up in court. So what? You're appearing to me in a vision to tell me I'm secretly rich? I'm appearing to you because you're my granddaughter and you're dying. She reached out, touched my face. Her hand was warm and solid and real. But you're going to go back. And when you do, I'm going to be there. The earthquake that hits the hospital in about 30 seconds? That's my helicopter landing on the roof. I've got a medical team ready to take over your care. Your family, your fake family, won't be able to stop me. They'll fight. Let them try. She smiled, and it was sharp as a blade. I'm Alexandra Winters. I own 40% of the Seattle real estate market and 60% of its politicians. I've been waiting 15 years to destroy the people who took my daughter and granddaughter from me. All I needed was to find you. The room started fading, or I was fading. How do I know this is real? When you wake up, ask to see your medical records. Your real medical records, not the ones Patricia has been feeding the doctors. Look for your blood type. You're AB negative. Patricia is type O. David is type A. Biologically impossible for you to be their child. Sophia is their biological daughter, yes, born a year after they took you. The heir they actually wanted while keeping you around for the trust fund money. Everything went white, then black, then painful, sharp, agonizing painful as electricity shot through my chest and my heart stuttered back to life. The first thing I heard was shouting. The second was the helicopter. Alexandra Winters was as good as her word. Her medical team swept in like an avenging army, and suddenly I was being transferred to a private room in the hospital's VIP wing. Patricia and David tried to stop them, claimed parental rights, threatened lawsuits. Alexandra handled it with 3 documents: my real birth certificate, DNA test results she'd somehow obtained, and a court order. You can fight this, she told them calmly, while I pretended to still be unconscious. But if you do, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly how Emma ended up in the emergency room. The coffee she drank came from your kitchen, Patricia. The one with your fingerprints all over it. The one that somehow contained a lethal dose of medication that you purchased yesterday. You can't prove? I can prove that you've been collecting $50,000 a month for 15 years for Emma's care. I can prove that money went into accounts in your name, not hers. I can prove fraud, embezzlement, and attempted murder. Or, Alexandra's voice turned thoughtful, you can walk away. Right now. Sign papers relinquishing any claim to Emma and disappear. They didn't sign, not then. They were too arrogant, too sure they could win. They'd gotten away with it for 15 years after all. That's when I learned the difference between having power and knowing how to use it. Alexandra didn't just have money, she had information. 15 years of David's tax fraud. Patricia's affair with her business partner. The bribes they'd paid to keep Sophia in her Ivy League school after she was caught plagiarizing. Every dirty secret, every small crime, every skeleton in their closet. But she didn't use any of it, not at first. "We're going to do this slowly," she told me that first night, sitting beside my hospital bed. "Legally, carefully. I want them to know it's coming, and I want them to be unable to stop it." Why? Because they took 15 years from us. They killed my daughter. They stole my granddaughter. They deserve to watch their world crumble piece by piece the same way they made you crumble. I thought about all the times they'd broken me down. The dinner parties where they introduced Sophia as their successful daughter and me as also here. The college fund that mysteriously disappeared when it was my turn. The medical emergencies that always seemed to happen when I had opportunities. "I want to help," I said. "You will, but first you need to heal, and then you need to learn." What followed were 2 months of the strangest education I'd ever received. Publicly, I was recovering from my poisoning, too weak to work, too fragile to see my family. Privately, I was learning everything: the family business, the financial crimes, the network of connections that Patricia and David had built on the foundation of my mother's murder and my stolen inheritance. Marcus Chen entered the picture during month 2. Patricia's grand plan to save themselves, marry me off to him, transfer the inheritance into a trust he would control, split the money between the two families. He was handsome in that generic way that looked good in photos, successful in that way that meant his father's success, and cruel in that way that meant he'd grown up believing women were property. The dinner where they introduced us was supposed to be my coming out party, my return to the family after my unfortunate illness. Alexandra agreed to let me go, but only with conditions. "The earrings you're wearing, cameras, the bracelet, audio recorder, the ring, GPS tracker with a panic button. One click and my security team moves in." I didn't need the panic button, though I came close. Marcus cornered me in the study while the others discussed wedding plans. My wedding plans, apparently, though no one had asked me. He pressed me against the bookshelf, his breath hot with wine and entitlement. "Your parents told me you might be reluctant," he said, one hand on my throat, not quite choking, but threatening. "But they also told me you're good at learning your place. Should we start that lesson now?" That's when Sophia walked in with her phone, recording. Not to help me, to document it, to have leverage over me later. "Don't stop on my account," she said, smiling. "This will make excellent insurance for after the wedding. Wouldn't want Emma getting any ideas about divorce." I let them think they'd won. Let Marcus paw at me while Sophia filmed. Let them see me cry, beg, break down exactly the way they expected. What they didn't know was that Alexandra's team had hacked Sophia's cloud storage. Every video she took was immediately copied to our servers, evidence for later. The apartment lease was Marcus's idea, pitched to my parents as a way to test my independence, while keeping me under control. He'd chosen the building one his father owned a stake in. He'd co-signed the lease to ensure I couldn't run. What he didn't know was that the property management company had recently been acquired by a shell corporation that traced back to Alexandra. Moving day was scheduled for next week. I'd spent the last month playing the perfect victim, packing my meager belongings, thanking them for their generosity in letting me have my own space. I'd also spent it working with Alexandra's legal team to create a perfect paper trail. The lease transfer to Marcus was a masterpiece of legal manipulation. Buried in the building's standard paperwork that he'd signed without reading, because rich boys never read what they signed, was a clause about lease transfers in cases of family consolidation. Since he'd claimed on the application that I was his fiancée, and since he'd given me full power of attorney over apartment decisions, another document hidden in the stack, I could legally transfer the lease to him without his additional signature. But that wasn't enough. Not for what I had planned. 3 days ago, I'd met with Patricia and David one last time. Played the broken daughter, the subdued victim ready to comply with their wishes. I'd even brought them coffee, a deliberate echo of what they'd done to me, though they were too arrogant to see the parallel. "I've been thinking," I said, keeping my eyes downcast. "About the wedding, about Marcus. You're right, I should be grateful." Patricia had actually smiled, finally coming to your senses. "I want to make things right between us before I move." I pulled out an envelope, handed it to David. The lease. I've already transferred it fully into Marcus's name. So you know I'm not going to run. I'm committed to this family. David didn't even check the papers. Why would he? I was broken, beaten, subdued, Emma. I'd never had a clever thought in my life as far as he knew. Good, he said. Marcus will be pleased. The wedding is in 3 weeks. There's one more thing, I said, standing to leave. Grandmother sends her regards. The color drained from Patricia's face. What did you say? Alexandra Winters, my actual grandmother. She wanted me to tell you that the trust fund you've been stealing from, the $50,000 a month for 15 years, she's calculated the interest. With penalties for fraud, it comes to about 14 million, but she's willing to settle for 12. Cash, within 72 hours. You're lying. I pulled out my phone, showed them the DNA results, the real birth certificate, the death certificate of my actual mother, Catherine Winters, with the addendum that had recently been added after the case was reopened. Homicide investigation pending. 72 hours, I repeated, or she goes to the FBI with everything. David lunged for me, but I was already at the door. You can't do this after everything we've done for you. Everything you've done? I turned back, and for the first time in my life, I didn't hide my rage. You murdered my mother. You stole my inheritance. You poisoned me. You tried to sell me to a rapist. So, yes, let's talk about everything you've done. Patricia was already on her phone, probably calling their lawyer. We'll destroy you. No one will believe you. Alexandra Winters believes me. And in this city, that's all that matters. I left them there, scrambling, panicking. I knew what would come next. They'd rage, threaten, plot. And then, when they realized the walls were closing in, they'd do something desperate and stupid, like destroy my apartment. Which brought us to now, to this moment, standing in the doorway of Marcus Chen's destroyed apartment while my fake family committed felony vandalism that was being streamed live to Alexandra's legal team. Nothing to say? Mom repeated, stepping closer with spray paint can still in hand. No begging? Actually, I said, finally speaking, I do have something to say. Marcus, you should probably see this. Right on cue, Marcus Chen appeared in the hallway behind me, along with his father, 2 police officers, and the building's property manager. His face went from confused to horrified as he took in the destruction. What the fuck? He pushed past me, staring at the ruins of what he thought was my apartment but was legally his. Who did this? Your future in-laws? I said helpfully. Oh, wait, sorry. Former future in-laws. I forgot to mention the wedding's off. Patricia dropped the spray paint can. It clattered on the destroyed hardwood, adding another splash of red to the carnage. This is your apartment. Emma's apartment. No, the property manager said, pulling out his tablet. According to our records, the lease was transferred to Mr. Chen 3 days ago. This is his apartment, his property, his security deposit. That's impossible, David said. I saw the papers. Emma showed me. He trailed off as understanding dawned. Beautiful, horrible understanding. You set us up. Sophia's voice was barely a whisper. Set you up? I pulled out the envelope I'd shown them, the one they hadn't bothered to actually read. These are the papers you didn't check. The ones that clearly show the lease transfer. The ones that also show Marcus requested the apartment be left furnished with all my belongings for him to dispose of as he saw fit. Which means, I gestured to the destruction, all of this damage is to his property, including the furniture, the electronics, and, oh, Marcus, didn't you mention you were storing some important documents here? Something about tax records? Marcus's face went purple. You fucking bitch. Language, Alexandra said, appearing in the doorway like an avenging angel in Chanel. Especially in front of police officers. Officers, I believe you have everything you need? The older cop nodded. Vandalism, destruction of property, breaking and entering. The live stream makes it pretty clear-cut. Live stream? Patricia's voice cracked. I held up my phone. Oh, didn't I mention? I've been recording this whole time. The video's already backed up to the cloud. Multiple clouds, actually. And my grandmother's legal team. And, I smiled, Marcus's father's biggest business rival, who I'm sure would love to know about those tax documents you just destroyed. Marcus's father, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. His voice was deadly quiet. You did this to trap us. No, I corrected. I transferred a lease legally, with Marcus's full consent, as per the power of attorney he gave me. What happened after that? That's on them. I pointed to my fake family. Though I did find it interesting that they knew exactly when the apartment would be empty. Almost like someone told them I'd be at a specific meeting at a specific time. Someone who might have had access to my calendar. Right, Marcus? The puzzle pieces clicked together in everyone's minds at once. Marcus had told them. Of course he had. He'd wanted them to destroy my things, to break me down even further before the wedding. He just hadn't known the apartment was already his. You knew, he said to me. You knew I'd tell them. I suspected. You're not exactly subtle. Plus, you did the same thing to your ex-girlfriend last year. Her parents mentioned it when Alexandra's investigators interviewed them. This is entrapment, Patricia shrieked. This is justice. Alexandra cut her off. Officers, I believe you have some arrests to make. But the police hesitated, looking at the older couple. Ma'am, given their age and the nature of the crime. Did I mention, I said casually, that there's also the matter of attempted murder, my poisoning 8 months ago? We have evidence that Patricia purchased the medication, David provided the coffee, and Sophia added the allergen. It's all documented. Now the officers moved. Miranda rights were read as my fake parents were handcuffed. Sophia tried to run, but she didn't get far. Hard to run in designer heels through motor oil. Marcus stood among the wreckage of his apartment, calculating. I could see him doing the math. The cost of repairs, the legal fees, the damage to his reputation. His father was already on the phone, probably with lawyers. This isn't over, Marcus said. I'll sue. Fraud, emotional distress, conspiracy. Please do, Alexandra said. I would love to present evidence in court about your sexual assault of my granddaughter. We have video thanks to Sophia, though I don't think she meant it to be used this way. Sophia, being led away in handcuffs, turned to stare at me. You planned all of this. No, I said. I planned much more. This is just the beginning. And it was. The arrests made the news that night. Prominent Seattle couple arrested for vandalism and attempted murder. The story exploded when reporters discovered the connection to Alexandra Winters, the mysterious granddaughter who'd been hidden away, the billion-dollar inheritance that had been stolen. Marcus tried damage control, but it was too late. The live stream had been shared thousands of times before his lawyers could file injunctions. His father's business rivals smelled blood in the water. Within a week, 3 major deals had fallen through. Within 2 weeks, federal investigators were looking into those destroyed tax documents. Patricia and David made bail, of course, but they came home to find their house in foreclosure. Apparently, they'd been using my trust fund payments to maintain their lifestyle, and without that monthly $50,000, they couldn't afford the mortgage. They also discovered that their business, the one built on connections Patricia had stolen from my mother, had lost its biggest clients. Alexandra had called in favors, pulled strings, whispered in the right ears. Sophia's situation was almost sad. Almost. Her Ivy League school expelled her when the plagiarism came to light. Alexandra's team made sure it did. Her trust fund, set up with stolen money from my inheritance, was frozen pending investigation. Her social media influencer career died when the vandalism video went viral with #spoiled Sister Sophia. She came to me once, 3 weeks after the arrests, found me at the coffee shop where I used to work, where I was saying goodbye to my former coworkers. You've ruined my life, she said. No, you ruined your life. I just made sure everyone could see it. I was just a kid when this all started. I didn't know. You knew enough to film me being assaulted. You knew enough to add poison to my coffee. You knew enough to spend 15 years making my life hell. I stood to leave. But here's the difference between us, Sophia. You had every opportunity, every advantage, every privilege, and you used them to hurt people. I had nothing but pain, and I used it to find justice. This isn't justice, this is revenge. Sometimes they're the same thing. The trials were almost anticlimactic. Patricia got 15 years for attempted murder and fraud. David got 20 for murder. They couldn't prove he'd killed my mother, but they could prove conspiracy and attempt. Sophia got 5 years in probation. Marcus avoided jail but lost everything else. The apartment building sued him for the damages, nearly $200,000. His father cut him off to save the family business. The last I heard, he was working as a junior associate at a law firm in Kansas, the only place that would hire him. But that was all just the public face of justice. The real satisfaction came from the smaller moments. Like when Patricia discovered that her sister, the one she'd always lorded her wealth over, had been secretly funded by Alexandra for years, building a competing business that swooped in to take all of Patricia's former clients. Like when David learned that his brother, who he'd cheated out of their father's inheritance decades ago, had been given enough evidence to successfully contest the will. Like when Sophia found out that every friend who'd abandoned her had been contacted by Alexandra's team and offered opportunities, internships, scholarships, connections that Sophia would have killed for. They'd spent 15 years isolating me, making me feel alone and worthless. Alexandra made sure they knew exactly how that felt. The inheritance was transferred to me on my 25th birthday. Not just the trust fund, but everything. The company, the investments, the real estate. $3.7 billion. I gave away most of it, not all at once and not carelessly, but systematically, strategically. Scholarships for foster kids, housing for abuse survivors, legal funds for people fighting their own family monsters. I kept enough to live comfortably, to build something of my own, but the rest went to making sure no one else had to suffer like I did. Alexandra understood. It's your money, your choice. Your mother would be proud. We built something new together, grandmother and granddaughter. A company that didn't exploit but empowered. A family that didn't destroy but supported. A life that wasn't about revenge anymore, but about renewal. I hired some of my old coworkers from the coffee shop, funded my community college classmates' dreams, bought the mattress store where I'd once spent hours just lying on beds I couldn't afford, and turned it into affordable housing. The basement where I'd lived for years, sleeping on the floor. Alexandra bought the house and turned it into a transition home for teenagers aging out of foster care. Patricia and David's former home became a shelter for domestic violence survivors. There's a poetry to justice sometimes, a balance that the universe demands. I think about that sometimes, standing in my real apartment, not the one Marcus destroyed, but the penthouse Alexandra insisted on buying me. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seattle, the kind of view I used to dream about when I was sleeping on concrete. I think about my mother, Catherine, the real one. The one who died trying to save me from the life I ended up living anyway. I have her pictures now, her journals, her dreams for me. She wanted me to be an artist. I'm taking classes now, painting the anger and pain and triumph into something beautiful. I think about the 3 minutes and 47 seconds I was dead. Whether it was real or hallucination. Whether Alexandra really appeared to me or my dying brain conjured what I needed to survive. It doesn't matter. What matters is that I came back. What matters is that I won. The last time I saw Patricia was at her sentencing. She looked smaller in prison orange, older, defeated, but her eyes still held that familiar contempt when she saw me. I hope you're happy, she said. I am. You destroyed our family. No, you destroyed your family the day you decided to kill my mother and steal her child. I just made sure you faced consequences. Your mother was weak, just like you, that's why she died. I smiled. It was Alexandra's smile, sharp as winter. My mother was strong enough to try to leave, strong enough to protect me until the end. And I was strong enough to survive you, strong enough to wait, strong enough to win. This isn't winning, this is just justice, I finished. It's justice, Patricia, something you taught me to never expect. Turns out you were wrong about that too. The bailiff led her away. I never saw her again. David died in prison 2 years into his sentence. Heart attack, the official report said. Karma, I called it. He was buried in a pauper's grave. No one claimed the body. Sophia got out on probation after 3 years. She tried to rebuild, but the internet never forgets. Every job application, every social media account, every attempt to start over was met with that video. The one of her laughing while destroying the apartment. The one where she admitted to poisoning me. She sent me a letter once, an apology maybe. Or an attempt at one. I didn't read it. Forgiveness isn't required for healing. Sometimes the best closure is no closure at all. Marcus disappeared eventually. Some say he left the country, others that he changed his name. His father's business survived but never recovered its former power. They'd built an empire on cruelty, and it crumbled the moment someone pushed back. I still have the recording from that day. The day they destroyed Marcus's apartment thinking it was mine. Sometimes I watch it when I need to remember how far I've come. How they laughed while breaking things, so sure of their power, so certain I was beaten. They never saw it coming. The girl they'd dismissed, overlooked, underestimated. The one they'd tried to break so many times they assumed I was broken forever. But broken things can be sharp. Broken things can cut deep. Broken things can be reforged into something stronger. Alexandra lived another 5 years, long enough to see me graduate from university. The real degree I'd always wanted, not the accounting they'd forced on me. Long enough to walk me down the aisle when I married someone who actually loved me. Long enough to hold her great-granddaughter, who we named Catherine. She died peacefully in her sleep, and I held her hand at the end. Her last words were about my mother, about how proud she would have been, about how love transcends even death. I run the company now. Not the one built on exploitation and cruelty, but something new. We fund abuse survivors. We investigate suspicious deaths. We provide legal services for people fighting their own monsters. Every month, at least one person comes to us with a story like mine. Stolen inheritance, murdered parents, abuse disguised as family. We help them all, not with revenge. That was my path, not theirs, but with justice, legal, careful, complete justice. There's a wall in my office covered with photos. Not of the people we've fought, but of the ones we've saved. Hundreds of faces, thousands of stories, all of them proof that survival is possible. That justice, however delayed, can still arrive. Sometimes young women come to me, eyes hollow from years of abuse, voices small from decades of being silenced. They ask how I did it, how I survived, how I won. I tell them the truth. I died first. Not literally, most people don't get that particular advantage. But internally, the girl who sought their approval, who believed their lies, who thought she deserved the abuse, that girl had to die. And from her ashes, someone stronger emerged. Someone who understood that family isn't blood, it's choice. That love isn't supposed to hurt, that justice might be slow, but it's worth the wait. They ask if I regret anything. The planning, the deception, the complete destruction of the people who raised me. I think about Patricia's face when she realized I'd played her. David's shock when the handcuffs clicked. Sophia's tears when she understood her life was over. Marcus's rage when he saw his apartment destroyed. Do I regret it? No. They had 15 years to show mercy. 15 years to choose kindness. 15 years where any single moment of genuine love might have changed everything. They chose cruelty instead. Every day, every moment, they chose to hurt me, to diminish me, to destroy me. So when I finally had the chance to choose, I chose justice. I chose to show them exactly what they'd taught me. That power is everything. That family means nothing. That only the strong survive. The difference is I was stronger. The apartment building was eventually demolished. Marcus couldn't afford the repairs, his father wouldn't pay, and the damage was too extensive. They built a park there instead. I donated the money for it anonymously. There's a small plaque near the entrance. From ashes, growth. From pain, peace. People think it's about urban renewal. They don't know it's about a girl who died and came back. About a grandmother who waited 15 years for revenge. About justice that arrived dressed as destruction, wearing the face of the very people who thought they'd won. I go there sometimes to that park. Sit on the bench under the cherry trees that bloom, where my fake family thought they were destroying my future. Children play where Patricia wielded her spray paint can. Couples hold hands where David dragged my mattress. Life thrives where they tried to sow destruction. It's perfect. The trust fund still pays out $50,000 a month. I donate it all. Every penny goes to kids aging out of foster care, to abused survivors starting over, to people who need what I never had, someone who believes them. Patricia would hate that. The money she killed for, stole for, destroyed our family for, now saves other families. The inheritance she thought would make her powerful now empowers her victims. That's justice. Not the violent kind that makes headlines, but the quiet kind that changes lives. The kind that takes everything they valued and transforms it into everything they despised. I kept one thing from that destroyed apartment: a picture frame, cracked and paint splattered. It used to hold a photo of their family: Patricia, David, and Sophia. The perfect family that never included me. Now it holds a photo of my real family: Alexandra and me at my graduation, my husband on our wedding day, our daughter on her first birthday. The family I chose, built, earned. The crack runs right through the middle of the glass, a permanent reminder of that day. Some people would replace it, get a perfect frame for their perfect family, but I like the crack. It reminds me that broken doesn't mean worthless, that damaged doesn't mean defeated, that sometimes the most beautiful things are the ones that survived destruction. My daughter is 3 now. She has my mother's eyes, my real mother's eyes, Catherine's eyes. Sometimes I tell her stories about her great-grandmother, Alexandra, the warrior queen who saved us all. Sometimes about her grandmother, Catherine, who loved so fiercely it transcended death itself. But I never tell her about the others: the false family, the stolen years, the careful revenge. That's not her story to carry. Her story is one of love, genuine and true, of family that chooses each other every day, of strength that doesn't come from breaking others, but from building yourself. Maybe one day when she's older, I'll tell her everything. About the girl who slept on floors and dreamed of mattresses. About the poisoned coffee and the 3 minutes of death. About the apartment destroyed by the people who created their own destruction. Or maybe I won't. Maybe some stories are meant to end with their telling, to be released into the world and then released from us. But for now, I watch her play in that park built on the ruins of revenge, and I think about cycles. How Patricia thought she was continuing one when she raised me to be weak. How she never realized she was creating the very weapon that would destroy her. They say the best revenge is living well. They're wrong. The best revenge is living well while ensuring your enemies can't. It's thriving while they suffer. It's building everything they tried to deny you while watching everything they valued crumble. And sometimes, if you're very lucky and very patient and very clever, it's watching them destroy themselves with their own cruelty, their own arrogance, their own certainty that you're too broken to fight back. The lease transfer documents are framed in my office now, right next to my mother's death certificate and my real birth certificate. The holy trinity of my rebirth. Visitors think it's strange, but I like the reminder. That paperwork is power, that the small details matter, that sometimes salvation comes disguised as bureaucracy. Marcus sent me a message last year, just one line. "I know what you did." I sent one back. "Good?" He didn't reply. There's nothing more to say, really. He knows, they all know, that's the point. Not just that justice was served, but that they know exactly how it was served, that they participated in their own downfall, that every cruel choice they made led directly to their destruction. I had dinner with Patricia's sister recently, the one Alexandra had secretly funded. She told me stories about their childhood, how Patricia had always been cruel, always been grasping, always been willing to hurt others for gain. "I'm sorry you had to live with that," she said. "I'm not," I replied. "It taught me everything I needed to know about survival. But the trauma made me who I am, and I like who I am." It's true, I wouldn't choose that pain again, wouldn't wish it on anyone. But I also wouldn't be who I am without it. Wouldn't have the strength, the cunning, the absolute certainty that justice is worth fighting for. The girl who stood in that doorway, recording her family destroying what they thought was her future, she knew exactly who she was, what she was capable of, what she deserved. And she took it, all of it. Everything they denied her and more. That's the real victory. Not just the money or the company or the penthouse with the perfect view, but the knowledge that I was never what they said I was. Never weak, never worthless, never nothing. I was always the girl with the plan, the one who could wait, the one who could watch, the one who could win. They just never bothered to look close enough to see it. Their loss, my gain. And in the end, that's all justice really is, a rebalancing of the scales. They had 15 years on their side. I had 3 minutes and 47 seconds of death and a grandmother who'd been waiting for revenge. Turns out that was more than enough. The apartment they destroyed has been gone for 3 years now, but sometimes I still dream about it. Not nightmares, dreams. I dream about the moment I stood in that doorway and watched their faces change as they realized what they'd done. The dawning horror, the perfect understanding that they'd played themselves. In my dreams, I always say something different. Sometimes it's checkmate. Sometimes it's goodbye. Sometimes I don't say anything at all, just smile that sharp winter smile I inherited from Alexandra. But in reality, what I actually said was simpler. As the police led them away, as Marcus surveyed his ruined apartment, as everything they'd built came crashing down, I said just 4 words. Welcome to my world. Because that's what they'd entered. Finally. The world they'd forced me to live in for 24 years. The world where family was danger, where home was hell, where every day was a battle for survival. Except in my world, I'd learned to win, and in theirs, they'd only ever learned to hurt. The difference in the end was everything.